The crack of the gunshot shattered the peaceful echo of laughter and the sizzle of ribs on the grill. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't a car backfiring. It was the sharp, unmistakable, ear-splitting snap of a small-caliber firearm. The sound rang out once, then again, faster, followed by a scream that turned everyone at my backyard barbecue to stone. I dropped the tongs and sprinted. My cabin sits nestled deep in Black Elk Valley, a stretch of wilderness known for its quiet pines, Crystal Creek, and absolutely no tolerance for HOA nonsense, or so I thought. I had bought the land 2 years ago after working 16-hour days at my job in crisis negotiation for over a decade. I needed peace. I needed air. I needed to feel like I wasn't boxed into someone else's concrete idea of control. That's what the cabin gave me. But Karen brought the concrete with her. She moved in last summer, a 2-story faux rustic monstrosity with solar panels and surveillance cameras poking out from every corner. She was the self-appointed president of a defunct HOA from 3 valleys over, and despite the fact that Black Elk had never belonged to any association, Karen had plans. "We need order," she once told me, arms crossed, clipboard pressed tight to her chest. "Cabin life doesn't mean chaos. We should standardize mailbox types and firewood stacking methods, and don't get me started on unauthorized gatherings." By unauthorized gatherings, she meant the occasional weekend where I invited friends, mostly veterans and first responders, for beer, barbecue, and stories under the stars. This time, she'd gone too far. The guest she shot was Devin Tate, an U.S. Army medic, wounded in Fallujah, the guy who once pulled 4 men out of a burning Humvee. He was laughing 2 seconds before it happened, telling my niece about how he learned to make flatbread on a radiator in Afghanistan. Now he was bleeding on my porch. 2 holes in his shoulder, blood soaking through his shirt. He was conscious, calm like a man who's bled before and knows how to manage it, but the look in his eyes was clear. Pain, shock, disbelief. "He didn't even see her," he muttered. Karen had stood behind the pine tree near the edge of my property line, the same tree she'd once told me obscured her view of the valley. She had a pearl-handled .22 in her shaking hand, and she was screaming into her phone. "He's attacking me! There's a group of them! They're threatening me! I feared for my life!" I didn't wait. I applied pressure to Devin's wounds, barked at James to grab my emergency trauma kit from the truck, and told Maria to call 911 and do not hang up until she got a real dispatcher on the line. But someone else had already made the call. Karen. And she'd lied. She had told them she was surrounded by armed men, veterans playing militia, and that she was under siege at her own property. She described gunfire, threats, and a group of men trying to storm her home. We heard the sirens 10 minutes later, but it wasn't a couple of cruisers with sleepy rural deputies. It was a full tactical SWAT deployment. Black SUVs, armored van, flashlights, boots on gravel. And I knew immediately this was not a misunderstanding. This was a trap. Karen had planned this. She knew who I was, what kind of friends I had, and how the media would love to paint a story of armed men in the woods gone rogue. She wanted her HOA empire, and if she had to ruin me or kill one of us to scare the others into submission, she would. But she didn't count on one thing. I used to train SWAT teams. I recognized the squad leader immediately, Lieutenant Kyle Mahoney. We'd run simulation drills together 6 years ago in the city. I stood up, hands raised, my voice calm but firm. "Kyle, it's me, Mark Holloway." He blinked, then everything slowed down. Guns lowered, orders snapped, EMTs rushed in. Within minutes, Karen's entire fantasy shattered. Devin was stabilized and airlifted to the regional trauma center. Karen, screaming like a banshee about her rights and neighborhood security, was handcuffed and shoved into the back of a black cruiser. They found 2 extra loaded magazines in her coat pocket, a radio tuned to a private channel, and notes outlining our barbecue, including a diagram of where everyone would be sitting. She had been planning this for weeks. But it didn't end there. Because people like Karen don't just rot quietly. She hired a lawyer, filed a lawsuit claiming she'd been defending her neighborhood from paramilitary activity, said she had video proof of threats and hostile movements. Problem was, I had cameras too, and witnesses, and a signed permit from the county fire marshal for controlled outdoor cooking. More than that, I had 30 people, many with medals, community service awards, and spotless records, ready to testify that the only thing we were firing up that night was the grill. Then came the twist. During discovery, my lawyer got access to Karen's hard drives. Buried in a subfolder marked Private Board Docs was a file named HOA Black Elk Expansion. She had been creating a fake homeowners association with bylaws, enforcement protocols, and violation fine schedules for properties she didn't even have jurisdiction over. She was going to submit the documents to the county as a revived historical association, which, under a loophole, might have allowed her to collect fees and enforce bogus rules if no one challenged it. We also found email drafts to neighbors, warning them about me, labeling me a dangerous extremist and a domestic threat. Some emails had been sent anonymously under fake names to local media, trying to stir up panic. But she didn't expect me to fight back. I filed a restraining order, then a civil suit for defamation, trespassing, endangerment, and attempted homicide. Karen's legal team tried every trick in the book: mental health evaluations, procedural delays, character assassination. Didn't matter. The prosecutor brought criminal charges too: aggravated assault with a firearm, reckless endangerment, false police report, and premeditated malicious intent. Karen pled not guilty, but the trial was her undoing. Day after day, the courtroom heard from witnesses, decorated veterans, nurses, firefighters, teachers, all describing a quiet evening turned to chaotic, all describing a woman who had been warned, who had threatened, who had plotted. Then came the footage. My trail cam showed her crouching behind the tree. Her phone records proved the 911 call came after she pulled the trigger. The jury was out for less than 2 hours. Guilty. She was sentenced to 12 years, no parole for the first 6. The judge called her a menace to civil society disguised as a community leader. I used the settlement from the civil case to build a permanent veterans retreat cabin near my property. Devin, after recovering fully, was the guest of honor at the opening ceremony. That summer, we held the biggest barbecue the valley had ever seen. Local bands, homemade chili, a flag raising at sunset. No one needed a permit. No one checked for clipboard approval. We were just people, friends, free and unafraid. Sometimes I think back to that moment, right after the shot rang out, and I wonder what would have happened if we'd all just caved to her demands, if we had paid her fake fines, let her dictate how we lived. But we didn't. And because of that, she's behind bars, and the mountain is quiet again. Karen thought she could rule us with fear. She forgot one thing. You never bring a clipboard to a battlefield, especially not one guarded by the people who already fought for freedom once and aren't afraid to do it again. Thanks for watching this heartwarming tale from Pixar Tales. If the story touched your heart or made you think, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with someone who needs a little magic today. Your support means the world and helps us keep bringing these stories to life. Subscribe for more unforgettable moments, and we'll see you in the next tale.